And now it's time for our weekly segment, Roaming the U.S. with Mark Rome, an associate professor of government and public policy at Georgetown University. Mark, our three topics this week are House Democrats try to force a vote on immigration reform. The Army Chief of Staff is worried about troop readiness after budget cuts. And a private religious school kicks out an 8-year-old student because she isn't feminine enough. All right, let's get started on our first topic, Mark. On Wednesday, House Democrats used a procedure called the Discharge Petition in an effort to force a vote on immigration reform. First of all, discharge petition is a rarely used procedural tactic. So tell us exactly what a discharge petition is, Mark.
Right. So this is the way the House of Representatives works. The majority party controls the legislative calendar. So the majority party can decide what is voted on, when it's voted on, unless a discharge petition is offered. And what a discharge petition does is if a majority of the House of Representatives, that is 218 members of the House, sign this petition, they can bypass the majority leadership and bring a bill directly to the floor. Now, it's rarely used because clearly the majority, it's typically wanted to be used by the minority party, and the majority party typically does not want to let the minority party use a discharge petition to bring a bill to the floor that the majority party does not want to come to the floor.
But in this case, however, the majority Democrats do want to bring this to the floor quicker.
Well, the Democratic Party clearly would like to bring it to the floor, but they are a distinct minority in the House of Representatives. So currently there are something like 199 Democrats in the House and over 230 Republicans. So in order to bring this discharge petition to the floor, the Democrats would need something like 19 Republicans to abandon their party, sign this petition in order to bring it forward.
All right, 19 doesn't sound like a lot when you're talking about more than 200 members, but the likelihood that even 10 vote in favor of this immigration reform is pretty low, right, Mark?
Well, if I'm a Republican and I think immigration reform should come to the floor and I think it should pass, and I'm tempted to sign the discharge petition, oh man, I would be scorned by my party. I would lose my parking spaces. I might be deprived of my positions on the committees I want to be on. So the risks to any Republicans who sign this discharge petition are really quite high. And I can imagine even if some wanted to sign it, the incentives not to sign it are really quite dramatic.
Well, and the Democrats themselves even acknowledge that the likelihood that they'll get the minimum number of Republicans to deflect, let's say, very slim to none. So why exactly have the Democrats even tried to bring this to the floor if they know they have no chance?
Right. This is one of those winning by losing positions. And here's the deal. The Democrats believe the majority of the population of the country supports immigration reform. President Obama supports immigration reform. The Senate has passed a comprehensive immigration reform bill. So they're using this discharge petition not because they believe that it'll work, but to bring public pressure against the Republicans to say the public wants immigration reform, but it's those pesky Republicans in the House that are preventing the will of the people from being done.
Right. It's a political game. It's a way for Democrats to say, hey, we tried. The only reason why it didn't go through is because of the Republicans. But it is a political game. And I know the Democrats tried to paint the Republicans as the party of more games. But do you think that this is helping in bipartisanship at all?
It's hard to think exactly what would help produce more bipartisanship now. The parties are so entrenched in their positions and so deeply divided over them that it really is constant conflict between them. So yes, each party is going to do everything that it can to strengthen its position and attempt to discredit the position of their opponents. Democrats are doing that. The Republicans are doing it as well.
Now, let's talk about specifically the immigration reform that the Democrats would like to bring to the floor. We last heard from the Gang of Eight. That was the 8 senators, bipartisan group tasked with trying to come up with a mutually acceptable solution to immigration reform. Last we heard was about January. That has stalled. What exactly is the problem when it comes to what was put forth back then?
Well, the hardest problem to overcome in the negotiations between the Republicans and the Democrats is what should the legal status be for those who are currently here undocumented? So, should there be legal resident status? Should there be a full path to citizenship? Should there be different categories so we provide a path to citizenship for young people who have been here pretty much all their lives and are going to college or serving in the military as compared to adults? So, there's lots of issues regarding citizenship, legal status, or none of the aboves. And that's what really divides the Republicans and Democrats in this. And that's why it's so hard to come to a decision because those things are mutually exclusive. Either you're here legally or you're not.
What is the latest status of the DREAM Act that was proposed by President Obama that is targeting exactly the audience you mentioned, children of immigrants who are not here legally? What is the status of that DREAM Act?
Well, the realistic political status that I'd like to offer you is that it's dead in the water right now. I mean, the Senate bill basically does what the DREAM Act called for, but it's not clear. In fact, it's I should say it is entirely clear that the Republicans in the House have no appetite whatsoever for bringing anything like a DREAM Act to the floor of the House, and the Democrats are not going to be able to force them to do that.
Well, some Democrats in the House have a really good point. Republicans who oppose this current reform bill, they haven't brought forth their own contribution or what they would like to see change. So is that also contributing, Mark, to the stagnation in the House?
It is, although, I think in fairness, the Republicans would say we do have our proposals, which rely primarily on we need to tighten border controls and strengthen the security to make sure that undocumented workers cannot cross the borders. Until the borders are sealed, we don't want to move towards any sort of legal status or citizenship for those who are already here. But the problem is, it's virtually impossible to entirely seal the borders, or it's only possible to get close to a seal by spending a lot of money. It's not clear that the Republicans want to spend that much money to increase border security either. So it's unlikely that we'll be able to satisfy Republican demands for greater border security in order for them to move forward on a legal status for those who are already here.
Mark, when it comes to immigration, I think that this is a huge issue or stain on President Obama's 2 terms. He came into office talking about immigration, wanting to bring about reform. Nothing really substantial has happened so far during his presidency. Do you think that immigration is going to be something that is a less than stellar record for President Obama when he leaves office?
Like, yeah, many people have criticized President Obama that in the first 2 years of his office, when the Democrats controlled the House and the Senate, and they could much move legislation that they really wanted forward, like the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, the administration spent a lot of time pushing healthcare reform, and immigration reform was on the back burner. So when they had the chance to do something, they didn't. Now they don't have the chance to do something, and they can't. So highly unlikely that immigration reform will pass before Obama leaves office. And I think that will be seen as one of the failures of his presidency, that he was not successful in getting that done.
All right, Mark, we have to move on to our next topic, the topic of the Department of Defense. Now, recently, Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel submitted his proposal for the military budget for the years to come, and it was significantly, I guess, lighter on the troop number of troops. He's looking to reduce the level of troops to the lowest level since post-World War II. There are some budget cuts, slowing of growth, etc. Now, the Army Chief of Staff, General Ray Odierno, he testified before the House Armed Services Committee earlier this week and said basically that he's concerned that the levels that the government is trying to get the Army down to would render our Army not as capable as he would like.
Right.
Do you think that that is an overstatement?
Well, whenever you see any member of the executive branch testify before Congress about the budgetary needs of their agency, whether it's the Environmental Protection Agency or the Federal Election Commission or the Department of Defense, the people testifying will say, we need more resources. we can't do our job if we don't have more resources. Our nation's security or its waters or its transportation will be threatened unless we receive more money. There are two ways to interpret this. One is they are bureaucrats who are defending their turf, who believe in their job and believe that more money would allow them to do more things better. So that's the purely bureaucratic side. But there's the policy side, which is they may or may not be correct. So when the military is saying our nation may be put at risk unless we have more soldiers, it's pure lobbying for more resources, but it may reflect real concerns about our national security.